AI can be used as a tool. It should not replace thinking and actually talking to your customers and your employees and your sales team. So you can use AI as a crutch to like ask it for ideas, idea generation. You can use it for deep research on your audience and stuff like that, but nothing replaces the gold standard of talking to people. I see this in messaging misalignment or content misalignment. If content feels like it's been written by 4 different people or completely different companies, that's a red flag.
This is a common scenario for B2B marketers. You launch campaigns, hit the deadlines, and fill the pipeline. It all looks great on paper, but something is still off. Internal messaging discussions resurface, campaigns feel shallow and reactive, and when you ask people what the brand stands for, you get 50 different answers. So what can B2B marketers do when their marketing is outpacing their brand strategy? Welcome to this episode of the B2B Marketers in the Mission podcast, and I'm your host, Christian Klett. Today, I'll be talking to JoAnne Gritter, who will be answering this question. She's a member of the leadership team at DDM Marketing and Communications that provides integrated marketing solutions to drive business success. Tune in to find out more about what this B2B marketer's mission is. And here we go. JoAnne Gritter, welcome to the show.
Hi, Christian. Happy to be here.
We had such a wonderful pre-interview conversation. I almost feel like we're neighbors or something to that extent. But I'm really happy to have you on the show, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation because this topic is I'm a little bit biased because I am in the branding space, so it's a bit near and dear to my heart. But it's also something that's extremely important because you'll agree. I mean, I know you'll agree because you wrote an article about it.
Yeah,
it's something that marketing teams tend to overlook. And goodness gracious me, I'm gonna stop keeping people in suspense. We'll just jump right in. All right.
Okay.
So, JoAnne, you're on a mission to provide integrated marketing solutions that drive B2B business success. So for this conversation, let's focus on this topic: how brand strategy helps B2B organizations to realign for long-term growth. So I'm going to kick off this conversation with the following question. In our previous conversation, our previous discussion, you talked about how marketing without a brand is a strategy without a soul. Could you please explain what you meant by that?
So I just made the comparison kind of to the whole human, as in the brand is your soul, meaning your values, what drives you, why you're here, what differentiates you, what makes you different than the person standing next to you. Whereas marketing is your body in action or action in general, where you hopefully, if you're a trustworthy person, what are your values internally are matching your actions externally. And that is often where we see a divergent in companies because they don't think about those as two sides of the same coin. It is really important that you make sure that you know the direction that you're going as a company and what you stand for and who you're there to support or serve and what markets you're there to do. And your whole company, everybody that's part of interfacing with customers understands that and is speaking the same language.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose the follow-up question to that is where do you see a lot of marketing teams go wrong? Because more often than not, a lot of teams are okay, we've implemented the campaigns, check. We're generating results and driving pipeline or filling the pipeline rather, check. So where does it all go wrong?
If you are not paying attention to your branding, you can have a lot of activity without a lot of traction. So, or you can have a lot of different messages going out that seem not cohesive or fragmented. And so you can, or more examples, you can have your sales folks going out and telling different stories about what your company stands for and what you do and how you're different. That creates a lot of waste, because then you're continuously trying to get more activity, more campaigns going, more salespeople out there, because you're not getting the quality leads that you need because nobody really knows what you stand for. Everybody says it a little bit differently. And that goes for customer service too. Branding, people think about branding as a marketing problem or a marketing, team's problem. But if, let's say, part of your brand is your brand identity or values is to put the customer first. If you don't really solidify that from your sales team and your like customer support team, then there would be a mismatch there, right? Then you're just putting out into the world that customer is first, but that doesn't match up with what the customer is experiencing.
Yeah, there's certainly some kind of misalignment there, and you touched on it like briefly. It's interesting to me, like even in my own experience, one of the telltale signs of that is when you ask people within the organization, well, what makes you different? And you get 50 different answers. And some of them are similar and some of them are completely like different. And it's like, okay, yep, okay, I see where this is going. Or to your other point, when sales teams are having those discovery calls and you listen back to some of those recordings, which I hope you marketing people out there are doing, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you listen to the way that the sales deal with objections, and maybe the procurement team or people like the on the prospect side, they're probably not phrasing it exactly the way I'm going to say it right now, but like, but they probably are asking something to the effect of, okay, what makes you different from vendor B, C, and D,
Hmm.
right? What is different about your solution? Like, why are you charging this guy? Why are your rates like this high?
Right. Absolutely. And if they have different answers, or if you go and you listen in on 4 different sales calls and they're all a little bit different, then that tells you have a branding issue. That people don't fully understand your brand and how you're different and who you support and serve.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So you've touched on it a little bit, but like, tell us about some more of these. I'm going to call them red flags, right? That
Mhm.
signal when marketing has outrun brand strategy.
Sure. I see this in messaging misalignment or content misalignment. If content feels like it's been written by 4 different people or completely different companies, that's a red flag. If, like we mentioned, your sales team talks about your company completely differently, it's okay that they put their own little spin on it as long as you're still hitting like the purpose of your company, why you're here, how you serve whatever your target audience or audiences are, what your values are. If that's not coming through in those different places, then you may have a brand issue or your training issue, or your brand is not being carried out through the company. So when you have a solid brand, it should be repeated in like your onboarding process, in HR kind of things, in performance conversations, in obviously your sales and marketing and your customer service, so that everybody is aligned to that brand and so that there's a common message, common theme, because repeatability is super important. Consistency is super important in marketing. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that. It takes multiple times of hearing the same message for it to actually resonate. And if they're hearing multiple different messages, it causes confusion and a lack of trust in whatever the company is offering.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Um, JoAnne, I just thought of another follow up question, and you'll indulge me here. You know it, I know it, but let's clear the air here for a second because I've been hearing this, like, and I'm sure you have as well in the B2B world. It's just been thrown around like very loosely. Let's clear the air here. Like, what do you mean by brand strategy? Because I've heard people, especially at senior level, say like, yeah, we don't need branding. We've got a logo and we've got a website. We're good. So
Right.
maybe just clear the air on that one, please.
Well, brand strategy is, let's see, like I think of strategy in like 4 or 3 different tiers. Like we have your business strategy, it's how you win in the marketplace. Then you have your brand strategy, which is positions you in the market and in the minds of your consumers or your customers. And then your marketing strategy is how you take that and communicate it out and you deliver that message in multiple different channels. So if you have marketing running without laddering up to that business strategy and brand strategy, then it's just running and putting stuff out there. So it's just activity without purpose and strategy. So Like a brand strategy is so much more than just, a lot of people think about it as their logo, their identity suite, whatever, but there should be research that goes into it. There should be stakeholder analysis. They should talk to your customers and kind of understand what they value about your company compared to another company. So then using their language in some of your brand messaging is super helpful. So if you have like customers that say, like I just love working with, company X, Y, and Z because the people are great, they're super responsive, they get me what I need, et cetera. Like using some of that as part of your brand is going to be really important. So like a strategy may include like the focus, the brand promise, your core values can be part of that. The naming can be part of that. Obviously, the design part that a lot of folks actually think about and listen or think about and recall would be like the visual identity that also needs to be consistent from your logo to your fonts to your colors. And then like multiple touch points on that, like again, like repeating that consistency from like the stationery, the collateral, the assets, all that stuff, but then also making sure that the messaging and the voice carries throughout your company, past your marketing team, past your sales team.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, I like to tell people that all of these things that you mentioned, especially the visual aspect, the sexy part of it, right? Like the visual identity, the logo,
Right,
the web design and all that. It's the end result. It's one of the outcomes of
right.
branding, right?
That doesn't come out of a vacuum, right? You don't just
Right.
have a designer that's like, I'm super excited about the color red, so we're going to do everything
Yeah,
red. It's what do our current customers feel about us, and what do we want our prospective customers to feel about us? And then there's a lot of
exactly.
strategy behind that.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to move us on to the topic of key pitfalls to avoid. So, what are some of these key pitfalls that B2B marketing teams should avoid, and what should they do instead?
So pitfalls that I see is companies, teams that get really excited about certain trends. I'm just going to pick on TikTok. There's time and a place for TikTok, but like for B2B, they're like, oh man, everybody's on TikTok or this latest, social media platform channel. We really got to get on there. Or we got to use AI in some specific way without like thinking about the strategy behind that and just like going forward because that that's the hottest trend right now. So always make sure it ladders up to where your customers are and what you want them to think about you. If you're a B2B company, it's likely that your customers are more on LinkedIn than they are on TikTok. That's just an example. I can't say that across the board, but like picking things that are always centered on your customer and your brand are super important. So that's a pitfall, and then what to do about it. Um, Also, treating the brand as a one-time exercise, like a set it and forget it kind of thing. A lot of people are just like, okay, we did the brand, we got a great logo, we got stationery, we even got PowerPoints that are branded, and then never think about it again, except for like just the colors and the logo on all of your media assets, right? So but the brand is so much more than that. The brand is so much about like how you want them to feel, what the differentiators are, what makes you different, what you deliver, and like how you talk about it, how you position yourself. So like every asset that goes out the door should be aligned to that. There should be almost a hierarchy.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. And I'm going to throw another follow up question at you, only because I know you can handle it. You probably hear this a lot, and you hear this a lot, most likely also from marketing teams that perhaps uh, don't have as much experience in the branding space as you do.
Mhm.
And they say things like, "JoAnne, we're looking at our company, and we feel that the overall look and feel and the direction it's not really in line with what we aspire to be. So we're looking for a revamp." And then as the conversation progresses, they say, "Oh, actually, we want maybe just a refresh," right? And then you hear another prospect say, "Well, we just merged the two companies, so like, what do we do there?" So maybe just to again clear the air, so people don't throw around these terms so recklessly. What actually is the difference between a brand refresh a brand revamp, and branding as a result of a merger?
Like a brand, like from scratch, is going to take a lot of different kind of research
Mm,
efforts than like a brand refresh. Like if you're doing a brand refresh, then you're looking at assets that already exist, and you're looking at reasons why they might change or are no longer working. So you're doing more of an audit kind of thing. Like what's different now than it was 20 years ago when we created this brand, and where are we going? Their new leadership, are they focused on different parts of this? Like even DDM, the marketing agency that I work with or that I work for, we every once in a while look at our brand and not just the visuals, but like the things that make us unique, and we say, hey, those are still unique, but we're talking about them slightly differently now. So we need to take a look at that and change the messaging a little bit. We're heading in a slightly different direction lately with our creative, so let's make sure that we're still aligned so that everything matches. And if they see us on Instagram versus if they see us on LinkedIn or on our website, that it still looks like DDM. And then a merger is slightly different because you're putting together two brands. And a lot of times they're creating a new brand from that, or they might keep one of the brands and then just bring another, like, company X is now a company-wide brand, and there might be like there's all kinds of different ways, hierarchies of brands in that kind of scenario. But more recent one that we did, they created a new brand, which was a combination of the two names. And they went through the whole exercise with the new leadership team. So it's more similar to like starting from scratch, but also taking bits and pieces that they want to keep from both brands and what's working. So you kind of look at what clients from both brands like about those brands and make sure that you keep those and you preserve those and make sure that it's heading in the direction that the company wants to go. A lot of discovery and research and questions.
absolutely, absolutely, and I love that you keep bringing that up though, because that is again one of these components that people tend to overlook. That this comes with a lot of research. It's not, as you said, it's not okay. Here's the brief. Graphic designers or design team, have at it.
Right.
Come up with something
It's
that looks
psychology.
great, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, my favorite briefs are always the ones that said we want something modern, clean, yet traditional and exciting. It's like,
Oh, yes.
oof,
Creative. Make it creative
yeah,
and
make it creative.
splashy.
Yeah,
Right.
splashy.
What does splashy mean to you?
Yeah, yeah. Open to interpretation, I suppose.
Hmm.
Um, why do you believe that inconsistent messaging and internal misalignment cost organizations credibility and dollars? And you did touch on it earlier on in the conversation.
It's a misalignment of what you say versus what you do. If you have on your website that you are there to serve X population, and that you are like your mission and purpose in this world is to support that population in achieving whatever goal, whatever needs that population needs. But then that customer or population that comes and interacts with your brand does not get that from the people or get that from their experience with your product, then that's a misalignment, and that creates instant distrust. Like you are not following through on what your brand promise was. Or if you have multiple people saying they're
Yeah.
promising different things and they
Mhm.
don't get that, that's a lack of trust too.
I'm kind of slightly grinning here, although I know that anyone who's been in this situation probably will not see any humor in it. But like, I'm just thinking about anyone that's experienced a flight delay
Right.
or been trapped at the airport, and whichever airline it is you're flying with, and you have to deal with ground staff that are either unprofessional and rude,
Hmm.
or you just have zero transparency. And I'm sure, like,
Absolutely.
I've certainly gone through it. Like, I've experienced a 10, 12 hour flight delay, right? Where I was at the airport until like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then they finally come and say, "Well, the plane's not coming."
Yeah, that really rocks the brand reputation. I also see that in
Absolutely.
healthcare a lot,
Mhm.
which God bless everybody in healthcare. It's hard, but like if all those services are disjointed and
Yeah,
the scheduling gives you a different feeling than the doctor gives, then trying to do things online, it doesn't match what your experience is in person. People don't want to go to that provider anymore.
that's right.
They're like, this
That's
is
right.
confusing. I just want help. I just want to get what you're promising me.
It's a very for lack of a better description, a fragmented ecosystem.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And that's a bigger issue than we can solve here. But yeah,
Yeah, no
it
amount of
happens.
branding is going to fix that. But
Right. You got to follow through on it.
that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Um, Talk to us about how aligning, and you've touched on it briefly, like how aligning soul and action will help to build trust, loyalty, and resilience. And please provide examples where relevant.
Let me think of an example. We work with a very large medical device manufacturer, and we've worked with them for 15, probably close to 20 years now. And so 15 years ago, they were very product centric. They also grow by acquisition. So they have like several different companies that came in under this master global brand. And even though they had the same logo, they still had their own kind of visual identity. They all talked about their stuff differently. And as a result of that, in those different teams, the customers were getting wildly different experiences from this company, even though they were all under the same master company. So they rebranded. We helped them rebrand 7 years ago, maybe. And this is a global organization where they brought all their business units under the same brand. They have a very strict, robust brand now. And I'm not saying that everybody needs 100-page brand guidelines. They don't. But like they went all in on branding, and they make all their new employees do their brand training. It's worked in through their onboarding. It's worked in through their like performance conversations, and they have just really exploded and created this amazing reputation as a leader
Oh, I'm
in their
sorry.
industry.
You're talking about real branding then,
Oh,
right? Like,
yes. Real branding. Yes.
yeah.
They are now a leader in their industry. I
Mhm.
mean, they were big before, but they have just really exploded in the last 7
Right.
years since rebranding. And it's been really helpful for them because now they still grow by acquisition, but they bring in a new company and they know what the process is to get them on board, not just from a visual identity, like rebranding all the collateral, like the sales enablement and stuff like that, but bringing the internal teams up to speed about like what we stand for, what we hire, like what kind of values we look for, so that every customer gets the same experience.
From your experience, how did that exercise of helping them to rebrand and take all of this, because there's that situation of taking all the business units and putting them under one roof, so to speak. How did that exercise help to improve them as an organization?
It's been a long time, like in multiple phases. So
Mhm.
it improves their organization. It creates a lot of clarity for them. So they're not like redoing each other's work, and they're not all creating the same, or they're not all creating from scratch anymore. They have a similar starting point on like the different, like, let's go messaging pillars that they need to hit, even for just their products. So this goes into product messaging and product launch. So like if they're medical device, they are they want to sell knee replacements or stuff along those lines. They know that they need to hit on a couple core values, and they need to make sure that they are targeting the same audience, and that they need to make sure that what they're saying out there aligns with the master brand. Of course, they still need to do the differentiators on the product level, but they also have the full brand that supports it. So it's just a higher level like reputation. I like to compare like branding to your reputation. So that goes along with every product that they bring in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we get to the part in the conversation where we're talking about actionable tips, and you've actually given us quite a bit already. But if we were to summarize it, okay, John, like if there was somebody out there that was listening to this conversation, and they were listening to what you were saying, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, this is exactly what we're going through right now," right? I mean,
Yeah.
besides contacting you, right? What are like 3 to 5 things that you would recommend they do right now to realign for long term growth using brand strategy?
I would take a look at what brand strategy you already have, if you have one. Otherwise, kind of creating at least the bones of that. Like, what are our values? What are we focused on? What is our purpose here and mission? And then, like, what are messaging pillars or groups that align with those values? And then once you have those, making sure that you have a succinct narrative or story, or even like an elevator pitch that everybody is aligned on. Having that is kind of hopefully a simple thing for you to figure out and align on. And then auditing the customer journey for those promises and values. So like if you have a customer journey, they're going from, awareness of you or a problem to consideration between you and your company and multiple other companies, and then they're making a decision, then they're purchasing, then they're hopefully your customer experience and your delivery teams are delivering on those promises, and then you're creating loyalty. So that's the customer journey. So of these phases, are the customers still experiencing the brand that you want them to experience? So that's like a little audit that you can do. And then from there, also making sure that all of your content that's out there, from your brochures, your website, your sales enablement kind of stuff, making sure that that's still aligned to the brand and the message that you want it to. And then making sure that, of course, throughout the company, in your HR documentation, I've said onboarding a million times, but making sure that everybody that's coming into your organization understands who you are and who you serve and why.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a really good list. And I have to ask you this question because at the time of the recording, we're at the end of 2025,
Mm-hmm.
and you did bring up AI, so I'm going to bring it up again, right?
Yeah.
How how has, in your experience, from what you're seeing out there, how has AI impacted um, brand strategy and all the work that comes along with that?
Well, that's a loaded question, right?
Hmm.
So, as far as brand strategy, I kind of see it, AI can be used as a tool. It should not replace thinking and actually talking to your customers and your employees and your sales team. So, you can use AI as a crutch to ask it for idea generation. You can use it for deep research on your audience and stuff like that, but nothing replaces the gold standard of talking to people. So the best resources from that research perspective are your customers or your prospective customers, and your sales team. If you can't get to those customers, will often hear those positive and negatives about your products and services. So getting to those and aligning on stakeholders. AI can be used as, you can use it to help think of ideas for let me think. If you were thinking of values, like core values, and messaging pillars, you can say, hey, I really want it to be something along these lines. We're circling around on exactly what the right way to phrase this is. And it can give you 50 different ideas, and you can cross out 45 of them and then land on the top 5 that you communicate with your team. Don't ever take it for verbatim. Sorry, exactly as ChatGPT gives you. I
At
see
face
that.
value,
Face
right? Yeah.
value. Thank you.
Hmm.
I see that that is a lot harder for early career individuals because they
Yeah.
don't have that discernment yet. So
Right.
they will use it as a crutch, and then oftentimes not have that same kind of editing expertise to see what actually works and what doesn't. So pairing AI as a tool with human intelligence and empathy, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, at least in from my observation, and this is where I think AI really falls flat, especially when you're coming up with the verbal expression component of brand strategy.
Mm-hmm.
AI doesn't really have any soul or character. Like everything
Right.
it turns out is very, for lack of a better description, lifeless.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where the human element, or to your point, the human intervention can then come into play, because then you can inject that story, you can
Yes.
inject that human emotion, which also is a very crucial component in B2B, right? As much as people like to say, oh, B2B is all factual, right? And I would disagree with that.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity now.
Yeah,
People can spot the AI generated content, and there can be a whole bunch of it, and that can help you in a variety of ways.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if it doesn't sound human speaking or human sounding, then people reject it and they don't trust it as much.
That's it. Okay, get up on your soapbox. A status quo that you passionately disagree with, and why?
I passionately disagree with data only marketing. So the big push for data driven marketing, I am on board with that at face value, but it still doesn't tell the whole story, because you can still look at data from, let's say you did like a focus group about what customers want from a beverage or something like that. I'm thinking of Coca-Cola, and they say that they want it to be healthy, they want it to be low sugar, they want it to taste amazing, they want it to make them, feel great and stuff like that. That does not, you're gonna try to create like this Frankenstein kind of soda instead instead of recognizing that like there's more psychology to this. Like a Coca-Cola has like a whole traditional like branding kind of way that, or traditional and emotional way that they make people feel, and that doesn't show up in the data necessarily. That doesn't show up in the performance data. That is a totally different kind of research too.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
I
it's
totally
yes
agree.
and
Yes.
yes, performance marketing and branding.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. As
Mhm.
much as there is a big camp out there that says the future is data driven, when it comes to B2B marketing, and I'm like, yeah,
It doesn't all show up in the data.
right?
Humans are tricky. We're not
Absolutely.
robots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Here comes the bonus question. So, rumor has it that you like to draw,
I do.
right? Yes. And from one enthusiastic sketcher to another, I thought deep and hard about this question. Tell us about one of the most well, exciting, yes, but more importantly, one of the most challenging works that you've created to date. So, what was the theme and subject? What made it so challenging to draw, and what did you learn from that experience when you completed it?
I really like to find like kind of micro moments. I have 3 children at home,
Hmm.
and I like to take pictures or like capture like small moments of like one of them snuggling the cat, or
Hmm.
like holding hands, or doing something unexpected, and in like not a macro view but in a micro view of like the different connections that people have. And then
Mm,
usually I'll take a picture, and then I will sketch those out after they go to sleep and stuff like that. And that's just kind of my own personal way to I don't know, it's therapeutic. It's a way to see the beauty in the world, and to slow down in the moment.
100%. I like to call it balsam for the soul,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Hmm.
It's I don't know about you, but like I like to sketch in this very room where we're doing the recording, and I usually play classical music, so like
Okay.
Chopin, so something like with piano, like no opera because that can get a bit too dramatic, right?
I like classical too. When
Mhm,
I'm focused, I like classical music, and I also like I think it's called binaural beats, or
mhm.
it's more like
Sure.
meditation kind of
Yeah.
music. So
Yeah.
kind of zone into the moment instead of all the crazy thoughts that go through your head and all the things that you have to do throughout the day.
Very nice. Very nice.
Mhm.
One of the things I learned about drawing is pretty much like certain aspects of our professional work, like marketing and branding. Um, it starts with a line, and then you just keep adding the layers, right? And it's almost the same like when you're implementing a campaign. Some especially nowadays, right? You try to start small first and do a lot of testing to see if it works, and you scale from there. And I like to think of drawings that way too. You start not by adding the details. You start like with a lighter pencil, and there's a certain way of holding the pencil too, right? So you have lesser control, and it's just a bit free flowing. And for me personally, it took me a long time to start drawing like that because I'm like, no, then I don't have control of the process. But that's kind of the point, right? Let go of the perfectionism, right?
You outline it first, and then you start filling in, the shadows and the light marks, and then you slowly bring in the detail. I mean, that you're totally right, that is like a marketing or branding strategy. You got to outline it first,
Yep.
before you go full in on any specific detail. Otherwise, you may be way off target.
That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, JoAnne, like I think we just found our next podcast interview topic, but
Awesome. I
but
love it.
thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your expertise and experience with the listeners. So please, a quick introduction to yourself and how people out there can get in touch with you.
JoAnne Gritter. I'm at DDM Marketing and Communications, headquartered in Grand Rapids, Michigan, USA. And I am COO, Vice President of our company. You can get a hold of me at JoAnne, JoAnneg, at teamddm.com, or you can just check us out at teamddm.com.
Fantastic. And we will be sure to drop all those links in the show notes. So once again, JoAnne, thanks so much for your time. Take care, stay safe, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Christian. Bye.
All right, bye for now.